Did you know that the price of composite bonding can range from like $100 to almost $2,000 a tooth?
Yes, it's very confusing. And why is there such a big range in the price?
Well, this is what we're going to talk about today. So welcome to our podcast, The
Smile Sisters.
So composite bonding can be labeled a bunch of different things,
Yes.
and a bunch of different methods can be used to do it,
Yes.
as well as different materials.
Yes.
And then you also have the skill of the practitioner or the dentist who's doing it. So
Yes.
all of those things can really sort of go into the price that is set.
So I guess the most basic type is just taking one type of composite material, which is the white filling material, and just putting it on top of a tooth.
Right.
To add length or to change the color. That's probably the most basic kind, but it also is the most unnatural looking, I want to say. It's just
be.
one color and it can look really
Flat.
Really flat.
So, and then even with that one layer or one color, there
Yes.
can be different methods to do it, right? And it can be labeled different things, from just composite bonding, from injection molding.
Yes.
It can be called resin veneer.
Yes.
Composite edge bonding, layered edge bonding. So all of this terminology is out there. And some of it reflects the methodology that
Yes.
is used to do it.
But some of it is also just like kind of like labeling it something, like
Yeah.
branding it something.
Sure, you can also
Yes.
brand it based on your own technique or methods that you use to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about from the most basic to the most advanced or the most intricate kind.
Sure.
So the most basic is just taking one color of composite and putting it on top of a tooth as just one layer.
Yes. So when we do composite bonding, we have to really look at why we're doing this, right?
Right.
So often we do this at our practice because we're doing a smile makeover, right? So we're really wanting to change the shape of the teeth, maybe the color of the teeth
Right.
as well. But we want to design that to make it look natural. So if you're just going in without a plan, without a design, without an
Yes.
understanding of what your end game is,
Yes.
and just slapping on a color on the surface of the teeth, often they can look kind of barrel shaped and really flat.
I feel like some of them look really, really white. Like a lot of times people come in with the most whitest composite shade and it looks like just like a dome on top of the teeth.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very flat looking, but it's very white looking to
Yes.
me.
So sure, a lot of the color choice has to do with really understanding what a natural tooth looks like. Our natural teeth are not made up of just one flat color, right?
Right.
So they're made of gradients of color. And so that can cost more money to get it done properly. Because
Yes.
if we're trying to create that gradation of color where the edges of the teeth are more translucent, where there's that variation that our natural teeth have, you have to really layer the composite.
And
you can't
also,
just do one layer on
teeth
top.
are not the same thickness all along. Like sometimes when you just add the same thickness of composite all the way, that also can make it look weird because at the edge of the teeth, you want to kind of thin it out and not have like a shelf coming out of your tooth. You want it to kind of blend into your gum smoothly. So it becomes thinner as you go to the edge. It becomes thicker as you come to the incisal edge, to the chewing edges.
So, that really has to do with the skill of your dentist
Yes.
and being able to do something that's healthy for you. So if you get bonding done and then afterwards your gums are bleeding or you're getting more bad breath or you're starting to get staining around the edges,
Yes.
often that's a sign that bonding was done and it was made too thick, so they created a bit of a shelf at your gum line.
Yes.
We really want it to come out of your gums very smoothly so you can floss and your floss doesn't get trapped
Yes.
or rips.
It has to be smooth.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now we know we have the first step, which is just adding one color composite to the top of your teeth. Like, what's the next level that we would want to go
often
to?
the places where they'll only charge you a couple $100s or you travel out of country to get it done and it's very cheap, these are the issues. There's no time or effort put into the planning, so there's no design done. They're not
Right.
looking at the features of your face, which really matters. Like if you're a big square-jawed guy who lifts weights, you don't
Yeah.
want these dainty rounded edged teeth.
Yes.
It doesn't flow. But if you're a young woman in your mid-20s, and you have sort of a more rounder,
finer
sort of
features.
softer features,
Yes.
that really, you have to take that into account. So facial features really matter. So we take photography to figure it out. Then there is things like incisal display, like, you know, when you smile, how much tooth are you showing?
Yes.
How low do these things come? We're also looking at the gum line. You know, do we need to raise the gums up? Or do we need to like lengthen the teeth downwards, right?
Yes.
What is the ratio of the length to the width of the teeth, so that they look natural and they don't look squat? So like often we'll get people who come in and they have big gaps between their teeth and they're like, can you do bonding to close this? Sure, we can do bonding to close it, but if your teeth are already wide enough, like naturally wide enough, and then you add bonding to close the gap, they're gonna look like super
Like
wide
too
and not
wide,
natural,
yeah,
right?
that looks really bad.
So these are some of the things that require the initial planning to be done to get that design correct, right?
Yes.
So if you go out of town and you get, you know, this stuff done and you come back, they haven't ever seen you before. You show up and then they're like slapping this stuff onto your teeth, right?
Yes.
And often that's why the result ends up being really flat looking, one shade. The edges at the gums are horrendous, you know, and it just doesn't suit your facial profile at all.
It's
And I
too
see
white,
patients-
too wide, too big. People are like, it looks too big. I feel like people
it just
come
protrudes.
in.
So
Yeah,
really
it just comes
naturally,
out.
When we do this kind of work, we want it to look like you.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't look like you have these weird teeth.
Like
you know, it
you
just looks like
2.0.
you 2.0. Yeah, I like that. So that's the first part, is the planning. So that can go into
So
the
that can
cost.
add to the cost, of course.
sure, yeah.
because that takes at least 1 to 2 visits, I would
Yes,
say.
to
Plus
figure it out.
time in between, so you're not here, but we're planning. We're doing the planning digitally. We're doing models, mock-ups, and we're looking at your smile and we're thinking about where's your midline, where should the edges be. So we're putting in the time in between while you're not here.
Right, and
So
the
that-
initial interview, asking you, like, what is it that you want? You know, what is your ideal
Yes.
goal here? Like, how white do you want them? What shapes do you like? And then figuring out if that's reasonable in your face, if that's even achievable functionally. Like,
Right.
is your bite off? So often people get bonding done out of country or somewhere without planning, and then they break off constantly.
Yes.
Why is that? It's often because the occlusion or the bite wasn't taken into account. So
Right.
if your lower teeth are sticking out like this, and you get bonding on your upper teeth, they're more likely to chip and break off.
Right.
So all of those things, functionality, aesthetics within your face, you know,
Your
contour
bite.
at the gum line, all of those things matter, and that's the first steps that we do so that we end up with a successful thing.
And that step really gets skipped a lot by the lower cost bonding.
I mean, it's
places.
totally- it's
that's
not even
totally
accounted
skipped.
for.
Yeah. So you just
Yeah.
walk in and they put bonding on your teeth.
So that's the first step.
Not doing all that stuff. So
Right.
that's one step why it adds to the cost.
So now we've got the planning done and we've kind of figured
Yes.
out what it is that we need to do to make your smile
Yeah.
beautiful, and you love it. We've tried it in your mouth. So then now there's different ways that this actually can be reproduced in your mouth. So if you go somewhere that's inexpensive, they don't even do the first step, and then
Right.
maybe now they're just kind of slapping some stuff onto your teeth, not minding the aesthetics, the occlusion, the function, and the gum lines,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that's why these things can pop off, they look bad, they irritate your gums. But we do all that planning, and now you come in, and then there's different ways to apply that.
Yes.
Some people will just completely freehand this.
Right.
So no, they don't use any
There's
guides.
no guides or anything.
They just apply material onto your teeth. That really, really depends on the skill of the clinician.
It's
of the
really
dentist.
hard though. Even the best skilled clinician can have a bad day or you're tired or something, and it's really hard to get that correct, I feel like.
It is. I mean, but with practice you can.
Yes.
There is method to this, you know?
Yeah.
But yes, so the skill of the doctor who's doing it really applies. So sometimes some doctors will do injection molding, which is they make the clear guide, make holes in it, and then inject kind of flowable filling material through the guide so it kind of sits over top of your teeth to
Yes.
that shape that was designed. So
Yes,
design
yes.
needs to be done for this process.
Yes.
And that can be really great because it's predictable in the sense that the skill of the clinician, apart from like planning this right and making understanding smile
Yes.
aesthetics, they don't have to really know how to like by freehand it or sculpt. Really, it's an art. It's like sculpting if you're doing it freehand. So they can inject it in. The benefit of that is it's going to be consistent and predictable and relatively fast, right? So it might lower your cost a bit because it doesn't take as much time
Yes,
to do.
yes.
The negative of it is that the material is still just one color. Now you can inject different colors in, but again, that requires more skill.
Yes,
it's less
and more
predictable,
time, yes.
and more time. And then the material that's used, because we're using a flowable filling material that's injectable, it's a softer material.
Yes.
So it tends to wear away. So it won't last quite as long when you do
Especially
injection
on the
bonding.
biting side of your teeth.
Especially, yeah, if you're adding length and that bite's going to change, or you're going to be biting into this stuff,
Yeah.
it can make a difference. Plus, getting the gum line to be super smooth can also be difficult with injection bonding because it can leave a bit of a ledge that then you have to be able to manage properly.
Right.
So those are the issues with it. Usually it's flat colored, it's softer. The gum line can be an issue, but it can be predictable, look beautiful. It can look exactly like the model that was created for you.
You can exactly copy the model.
Right.
Okay.
So there's that. There's
So
that
what's
level.
the next level
So
up?
then the next level is doing like a layered bonding or layered resin veneers, right?
Like the layered edge.
Yeah. So layered edge bonding is the process that I usually use to do this. And what we do with that is we use the design that we had. We create like a shell that we put on the inside of your teeth.
It's like a guide.
It's like a guide for the inside, so it helps us kind of shape the gum or the edges of your teeth to length. And then we use different layers of material. Usually we're using 3 to 5 different layers of composite.
Yes.
So we start by building kind of the inside layer, usually with a translucent color, which is like a see-through color. And we put a thin layer there. And then that material that we use is also a really hard composite.
Yeah, so that there's different colors of composite, but there's also different types. So certain types are better for polishability, and certain types are better for biteability.
Strength and wearability.
Strength and wearability.
Yes.
So we have to think about not only which color we're putting in each place, but also which type of material we're putting in each place.
Right.
So the first layer where you're biting is the hard kind, and it's translucent.
It's the hard kind, and it's usually translucent.
Yes.
And this is so that when you bite and you grind your teeth, you don't kind of wear away on that inside layer.
Yes.
And the translucency creates that translucent edge that our teeth generally will
Yes.
have. Now again, how much translucency we do is going to depend on, are you a young person or are you an older person that has worn your teeth out? Because we lose some of that translucency as we wear our teeth out, right? Do we want to recreate that translucency? Do we want to kind of make it look like your age and make it real, you know? So what do we want to do with that? Then we layer a second layer, which is kind of more opaque, and it mimics the natural anatomy of the inside of the tooth, which are called mamelons.
Mamelons, a wonderful word.
Yeah.
But actually, teeth have different layers, just like what we're doing with this composite. We're trying to mimic the layers of the tooth. So the tooth has an outside layer, which is enamel, which is translucent.
A little bit.
Then it has another inner layer, which is dentin, which is kind of opaque, and it has this thing called mamelons, which are like these bumps that it has.
Right.
So with your second layer, you're recreating that inner dentin.
Yes. And this is where dental anatomy comes in. When we're in dental school, we, look at a tooth and we cut it up and we're like, oh, because when our teeth develop, they develop in lobes. Like, you don't just get this one tooth.
Yes.
You have different lobes that come up and they form
And they
the anatomy.
fuse, yes.
Right? And
so we're recreating those lobes as we're building up this tooth.
Yes, and they're made on our natural teeth. They're dentin. Dentin is opaque, has some opacity to it.
Yeah.
So then we do this kind of mamelon layer that we shape. We scallop it onto your teeth, and that mimics that layer of your
Mimics
tooth
those
structure.
lobes, yeah.
Right. Then our teeth also have staining. Sometimes they have like a little bit of a blue hue. Sometimes they have a little bit of white specks at the edges.
Yes.
Sometimes they have a little bit of brown, maybe at the gum line or even in the middle of the tooth.
Yes.
So then we take, for the third layer, stains and sort of stain the teeth to give it
We try to
that.
match your other teeth. Like, not everyone has it, so you don't have to get this
But
layer.
everyone has some
Something.
variation in their teeth.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
especially if we're doing like all of your front teeth, then we can really base it on what we want this to look like.
Yes.
And this also has a lot to do with what you want. Really, the goal here is to get you your dream smile.
Yes.
You know, and as much as I want to make things look natural, I want to make it look like I was never there, that this is just your natural teeth. This is what you look like. But some people come in, they're like, I want the whitest, whitest.
Yes,
whitest,
of course.
You know, and I'm fine with that. No judgment here, you know?
Yeah.
We're going to make it look the way that you want, as long as we're sure that's what you want and you're happy with it. But then, so a lot of how much staining we do, how much white specks we add, how much translucency we incorporate has to do with that initial interview with you. And looking at photos, we kind of look at designs, photos, what do you like? So then we add the staining layer.
Yes.
Right?
That really is what brings it like that, adds that natural look. Because it really takes it away from the one color flat. Like we're adding layers, we're adding stain, we're adding the lobes.
Yes.
These are all the things that make the cost go up. I mean, this is what
it's time,
is.
Right?
It's time,
it's
and
time
skill.
And skill.
Yes.
And materials. You know, the composites and the stains that we use are like top tier. You know, we are getting the stuff that is the best quality that is available
out there.
Because there is a lot of variety in the quality of composite materials available out there. So now we've done the you know, the hard inside clear layer. We've done the mamelon sort of dentin lobe layer.
We've done the staining layer. Yes.
Now we're looking at to match variation in color. So if you have a dark tooth, maybe, you know, whatever happened to it, we're blocking that out. So we're using sort of blocking materials to sort of camouflage the darkness of your teeth if you have some teeth that are darker that we want to kind of block out.
Right.
So we do that as well. And then we put the final layer, which is sort of the final color that we want. And this color is like a little bit translucent, but it has some color to it.
So it's in between the two other layers that we put, the translucent layer and the opaque layer. This one's like a third kind of composite that has combination of both.
Yes.
But it's also very polishable.
It's also very polishable. So then this composite is made, and this filling material is made up of like a gel-like layer, and then it's got little like particles,
like fillers in it. Yeah.
And the fillers can be shaped differently, and they can be different sizes.
Yes.
And that really reflects the
hardness and the polishability.
Yeah. So you want to use a type of composite for this final layer that often we call a microfill.
Yes.
Because the particle sizes in them are really small. And we use a material that has round particle sizes, so it can really blend as well. Okay, so anyhow, special composite,
final layer, very different than the inner layer and the medium layer.
Right.
So
So then we add that on, and now here in this final layer, we're being super careful to make the gum line shape correct.
Yes.
To make how it protrudes out of your gums look natural, so you don't have a ledge or a bulkiness. To make the anatomy to follow the scalloped edge of your gum line.
Yes.
Right? And often in this step, before this step, we're also recontouring the gums, right? So if you have a gum line on one of your front teeth that's lower than the gum line on the other one, we're going to want to do some gum recontouring if possible.
To give it that symmetry and to make it all look even.
Super important to get the gum line right as well.
Yes.
Other things we're looking at is your profile. Are your teeth sticking out? Are they too far in? You know?
The angulation.
What do we want this to look like? Incisal display, like when you're talking, how much tooth do we want you to show?
Yes.
You know? What looks natural? When you smile, we don't want your teeth to be sitting over your lower lip, but we don't want there to be like a huge gap between your lower lip and
a lot of testing and photographing as we're working.
As we're working as well. But the initial model helps. So now we've put the final layer, which is this beautiful layer. And then we spend a ton of time polishing and
shaping. That's really key. I think like a lot of dentists really don't spend the time polishing. Like I didn't used to until, you know, as you learn over the years, you learn, no, this is like, you know, the devil's in the details. And this polishing time is really like gold. That's what really makes it last, makes it look good, makes it flossable, stain resistant. So this is really important. So it takes at least, I want to say, an hour to 2 hours for an 8 veneer case of just polishing.
Polishing is a huge part of what we do.
So it's like one appointment of just polishing.
Yeah, and recontouring, like that final layer where I'll take some markers or pencils and I'll like mark where I want the angles of the teeth to be. Our
Like
teeth
how
have-
the light's gonna hit the tooth.
how the light's going to hit the tooth,
Yeah.
how symmetrical are the edges of the tooth to each other.
Yeah.
The different like anatomy and surface texture and lobing of the teeth. Our teeth are not flat, you
Yeah.
know. They have a little bit of like indentations in certain parts of them.
The front surface is also not flat. It's also following those mamelon
Yes, and
lobes, so
then-
you can mimic that in the final surface.
And then
Yeah.
they're not flat up and down either. They're more rounded at the gum line. They're flatter in the middle, and then they round in again at the
the edge,
bottom edge,
yeah.
at the biting edge. And so we are creating all of that. So it's a lot of work.
It's a
right?
lot of work, a lot of detailed work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and really fun and
Yes,
rewarding.
it
you know?
is.
But this is what it takes, and this is why there's variation in price.
Yes.
When you're looking at doing kind of a smile makeover with composite or resin, if
Yes.
you want to call it.
Yes.
So we usually do layered edge bonding because I really like to recreate that natural anatomy. I want to make it look as natural
As possible.
and I want it to last you a long time.
Yes.
So doing that layer on the inside that is stronger, more wear resistant, and then really adjusting your bite. We'll usually bring you back for another visit where we are looking at the bite again and
Yes,
polishing
checking,
again.
and yeah.
And then taking a lot of photos and then looking at the photos and going, okay, is there anything we want to change? And
Yeah,
going
a
back.
lot of tweaking, and all this adds to the cost. And this is what you're paying for when you
Totally.
paying 1,800 or 2,000 versus 100.
So, yeah,
so
so
you
that's
can
the
you
variation
can
in
call it
price.
what you want, but really what goes into creating a smile makeover is what you're paying for. It's you can call it a composite bonding. All of them are called composite bonding.
Right. So this is, we're trying to clear up
Yes.
like, what is out there and why people get confused. So often when people, their first question is, well, what do you charge? It's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
let me explain to you what
People
it is
call
that we
and
do.
ask, how much does it cost? It's like, okay. It's like, how can I explain this
As a
over the phone?
consumer, you have to understand that you are not comparing apples to apples
Right.
here.
Yes.
So you really want to be informed about what you're going to get. First of all, about what's out there.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with going in and getting a one layer whatever done.
Yes, of course.
But understand that that's what you're paying for, and
Yes.
that's what you're going to get. So really
Yes.
understand that. So I think it's important to talk to the provider you're going to see about.
You can look at examples of their work. I think that's
That's a
really
huge
huge. You can see, show me your work. There, anybody who's doing cosmetic work should be taking a lot of before and afters. Should
Yes.
have maybe it's not on their website, but they should have it somewhere. And you should ask for it. And why not? Like, you're paying a lot,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
get some before and afters.
We see a lot of patients who've had bonding done elsewhere and we're redoing. We do a lot of
Yeah,
redos.
because a lot of them chip because it's not designed properly.
And
a
the
lot of
gum
them.
lines are swollen
Yeah.
and they don't look right in their faces.
Yeah.
So there is that. So sadly, then it creates this notion that composite bonding is not good or
Yes.
that it fails.
Yes.
And by the way, this happens with porcelain veneers too. People are like, oh, I got veneers and they keep popping off. Again,
Yeah.
that has to do with there wasn't correct planning in your bite and
your
the function.
bite and the function and how much
Also
space.
how they prepared the teeth, how they prepared the veneers.
Yeah.
So both sets of things that you do, whether it's porcelain veneers, whether it's composite bonding,
Yeah.
really requires you to see a skilled technician. It sounds easy to do a veneer.
Yes.
It's just, but really it requires a lot of thought, a lot of planning.
Yes.
Your dentist has to have that ability to kind of look at a smile and figure out what's going to look natural and good for you.
Yes.
So those are really critical, really important things.
Yes. So do your research, find a good practitioner. If you want to find out more about us, we offer free virtual appointments online on our website,
Yep.
LA Dental Clinic here in Los Angeles. I hope this was useful to clarify the discrepancy in pricing and composite bonding and what goes into a smile makeover.
Yeah, it's a lot.
There's a lot.
It's a completely elective procedure. So you need to make sure that you get what you want
Yes.
and that you understand what you're going to get. So that's really important.
Yeah. Okay, see you next time.
Bye.